Hello guys, welcome back to the Try Time podcast. This is episode 30. I'm Callum, and yes, you was expecting us back in the studio today. So was we. Was really hoping we could get back. It's been set back again. Absolute nightmare, we know. So hopefully next week, fingers crossed, we will be back in the studio. Meaning, if you are a visual watcher, you actually get to see us in the studio in person. And generally, just the audio quality and the quality of general conversation, that sort of thing, is much better when we are in studio there together for audio and video listeners and watchers, sort of thing as well. So yeah, hopefully next week we'll be back. But as with the last few weeks, it is going to be me for the main part. Matt's going to be chiming in at the end with his predictions as well. But this is just the problem with sort of doing it kind of over a call. It is a bit of a nightmare compared to being in the studio at a set time. In terms of what's sort of to come today, obviously a lot of people, a lot of the talk around rugby is about the sort of racism and everything at the minute. Obviously, as the weekend just gone has been sort of the social media blackout across a lot of sports, rugby league included, all the teams and the sort of RFL pages and that sort of thing. Obviously, just before that came the Tony Clubb and Andrea Cervello incident, which obviously this is actually being recorded on a Monday, so the tribunal is tomorrow, but it is a grade F he's been charged with. So it's going to be interesting obviously to see what happens. And on Saturday we're going to have our video is going to be focused around this. Obviously we should know what actually happened then, and we'll be able to sort of talk about what it is. But obviously me and Matt, obviously I speak for Matt as well, like, we're completely against racism in any form and that sort of thing. Completely unacceptable. Obviously, if it is proved right, which it should be, there shouldn't be any kind of, there's no reason to lie like that. And I do believe Cervello, as obviously most people do as well. There's no real reason to lie. We do hope that obviously the proper punishment is there, which, like I say, we're going to talk more about that in Saturday's video. So before we do get started as well, please like, subscribe, that sort of thing. If you're listening audio, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, please subscribe, follow us on there. Leave us a review if you can as well. It does really help get the podcast out there. Right, let's get into the championship results from the weekend. Entertaining weekend of fixtures. Let's see what happened. Right, so we'll start off with Saturday. A couple of games on Saturday. So we had a cracker and an upset. Oldham beating Halifax 16 points to 12. Shock this, Halifax did need the win. They've had a couple of sort of losses. You thought Oldham away, Oldham are a good team at home, but you always kind of fancied Halifax in this, just to have that bit of extra strength. They haven't. Oldham have pulled off a massive win, which is big for them in their sort of survival pushes. There has been a few teams who you probably expected to be down in the relegation zone in the battle who have outperformed it, and thus making Oldham, if they go on a bad start, then maybe given to go down, which, they've proved that anyone can beat anyone in this league. Great win for Oldham. Halifax, back to the drawing board. They beat London round one and everything were looking rosy, but then from then it has been downhill slide. And, they've got a strong squad there. I do think it seems to be the problem that Halifax do have. They've got this sort of a strong squad, but they always just seem to not be able to win those games that you expect them to, which potentially could knock them out of the playoff spots come the end of the season. We'll have to wait and see on that one. It is early on in the season yet, but Halifax do need to improve definitely. Now we've got an absolute cracker. Sheffield 20, London 20. What a game that was. And I mean, London again, they needed some points, I guess. Obviously, I know it's not the normal point system, but a draw is still, it's still better than a loss in that. And, they wanted to win, but Sheffield, who are, playing really well, they've, started the season well. And a 20-all draw, absolute cracker. Both teams, I don't think, will be coming out of that too displeased. Sheffield have got the draw, kept a bit of momentum, and obviously they lost last week, but they kind of still been a positive start for them. London, it could be a building block into them, getting to that top six and helping themselves push up for them playoff spots. But overall, Saturday's action, two quality games. Now, on to Sunday. Some interesting game matchup. Every game in the championship, let's be honest, it can be a cracker. It's got the ability for any team to win. Realistically, it seems unless you're Fev or Toulouse, you're not really given to win. But neither of them were playing this week. But obviously, we spoke about that last week. So, Batley versus Newcastle. 28 points to 16 to Batley. This is when I backed Newcastle in, genuinely just because the home ground advantage. I thought that were going to be apparent with either of these teams, whichever were at home would win. But Batley showing the strength again. What a team this Batley team is proving to be. Right up there, you know, near the top, on absolute exhilarating form, and you know, proving the doubters wrong. You know, me and Matt had them fairly low, not getting relegated, but fairly low. Maybe they can push for a playoff spot. The Batley's that sort of team that they've just got good players who do the jobs, and they've brought in now a decent, you know, sort of bit more of a running game to them. They've got a bit more off the cuff, which I do like. So Newcastle again, their mission this year is probably like mid-table finish anyway. I do think it's attainable for them. I do think I've seen enough from them to say they can stay up, but they just need to be careful they don't get dragged into sort of a bit of a rut towards the bottom of the table. Now I've got another one obviously as a Bradford fan. I did watch keenly, and I thought it was a bit of an up and down game really. It wasn't the best game of rugby if I'm being honest. Bradford beating Whitehaven 30 points to 22. I mean, realistically, Bradford conceded 2 tries in the last 5 minutes. It was 30 points to 10, and it was 30 points to 10 from probably like the 60th minute, and it was a bit of a dead game after that. The game had been killed off. They got 2 late tries then, and it kind of makes the result not look as big of a swing as it may be. Why I thought at times Bradford looked really good, but at times we did look really poor as well. Whitehaven are one of them teams that are just never going to give up though. They've got some strong forwards in middle. They're just your classic sort of old school rugby league side, and they've got 2 really good running halves as well who did cause Bradford a lot of problems. I do think, you know, Bradford probably deserved the win. You know, like Steve Cross had an absolute beauty game, scored 2 tries, absolute superb dummy for one of them. Young Eben Skur as well for a man at match performance as well, unreal. So I think for Bradford, as a Bradford fan, I'm happy. You know, we're winning even though we're not playing great at times, which is always the sign of a good side. Getting a bit of momentum. On to next week, hopefully start building momentum until we're playing these top sides. You know, when we're playing Fev, York, we need to be going full throttle. We need to have the momentum, and I'm confident we've bounced back from that round 1 loss to Sheffield really well. Whitehaven, they're in every match they play. By it seems of it, you know, they're always in and around winning a try or, you know, a few tries away. So I think it'll start coming for them. I think important games for them are when they're playing their sort of other teams towards the bottom. I don't think they ever expect to beat, you know, your Bradfords, your Fevs, etc. But, you know, they put up a good fight nonetheless. Right, next up, Widnes, Swinton. This was sort of a big game. Neither of these teams had won yet. Both teams realistically needed a win. Widnes got the result they needed, you know, absolutely trouncing Swinton. It's a sort of game they needed just to score some tries, get a bit of confidence back going, play some free-flowing rugby, and they've done it. 46 points to 10. Swinton. I mean, over the last few years, Swinton have been that team that kind of has overperformed mid-table. At times, you know, even maybe pushed getting up to them playoffs at times. And, you know, everyone kind of expects them to do it every year. And, you know, when they'll lose a lot of players every year to the, you know, maybe 1 or 2 players go to maybe the better championship clubs, or you get Matty Ashton who goes to Warrington. And you know, there isn't the continuity there that maybe they need. And I mean, they are in trouble at the minute. It's early doors. They need to pick up some wins though, quick time. And, you know, next week they're playing Bradford, so I'd like to say it's not going to get an easy for them, but you never know really. But they do need to start picking up some results, because there's never an easy game in Championship, that's fact. And lastly, from the Championship, we've got York and Dewsbury, a cracker at the Tetley Stadium. York 30, Dewsbury 20. Dewsbury again showing that they are a tough team to beat. You know, they're beatable, but they're gonna defend. They're gonna try and complete high. You know what I mean? They're gonna be one of them teams, and they're gonna cause a couple of upsets against some of these bigger ties like York. But York have come through with it in this game, and you know, fair play. York again now are starting to look like the York we expected to see, building up some momentum. Everything's clicking. You know, these Super League players who've come down, they're clicking in the squad, and it's looking good for York as well. So, you know, maybe the concerns early in the season, maybe the first week or so, well, you know, York might miss playoffs here, but now you're thinking, yeah, York are back in the playoffs. They should be absolutely fine if they keep this momentum going. And Dewsbury are looking good to stay up as well, looking like they could be kind of settled in that mid-table. Maybe they're going to push like Batley have done. Maybe they exceed Batley and, you know, can push the playoffs. But at the end of the day, it's just been an absolute weekend of quality Championship rugby. It's arguably better product than Super League. I mean, maybe not on the pitch as much, but in terms of competition, how close competition is from top to bottom, anyone can actually beat everyone. And you know, you say that about Super League, but You know, you got a team like Lee going against Saints. It's just, you know what I mean, you kind of know what's going to happen. Whereas in this, you know, there is a bit more room for error with the big teams, and it does allow for some quality rugby games to happen. Speaking of Super League, we will move on to that now. Again, not a bad weekend of Super League games either. You know, Super League product I do think has improved over the last year or so. I am really enjoying watching it. So, Thursday night, Wigan 16, Hull 14, and this is a great example of what I'm talking about, great rugby games. And it's one of them where it could have gone either way. Obviously, it was tarnished by the situation with Club and Savelio. That sort of took home the headlines, as I've mentioned. But other than that, a great game of rugby. You know, again, it's one of them that's won on a knife edge. It comes down to the wire. Quality game. Wigan playing really well at the minute as well. They've kind of bounced back from, I mean, they beat Lee round one, but it was one of them where they kind of, I bet after that they was looking at themselves in the mirror like, we need to be better than this, do you know what I mean? And they've proved that they are, despite the injuries. Although everyone's starting to come back in now, and now it's looking like we're just building towards a big tasty Saints-Wigan clash when that comes ahead. But yeah, Hull as well. They're looking like a team that it's going to be one of them for them where they're in with probably maybe there's 3 positions for playoffs that are available, and there's maybe 4 teams there in that. They probably want lead runners to get in it. Obviously, it is early on in the season, so it is hard to tell. But Hull are looking good at Hull as well. Right, so on to Saturday. So, like we said, St Helens against Lee, we said it's predictable. It was. Saints, in some of these games, are not actually beating teams like 50-60, you know, nil or 56-12 or whatever. The games are close, which shows like Lee showed character and played a good game of rugby. Saints' quality is always going to be there. They've just got good players. They win ugly. They can win. They win ugly. They win pretty. They win whenever they want. It seems. Like last week, we sort of spoke about are they the unbeatable team, and potentially they are. You know, I only really see Wigan actually being able to beat them, and that's, you know, low chance of that happening as well. I think Saints have probably got a ticket to the grand final already, unless something serious happens injury wise. You know, it's going to take a big injury to someone like Wormsley or a Roby maybe, or even like a Lomax to really start maybe derailing this team. But obviously we hope that doesn't happen, and because they are a joy to watch the Saints. In terms of Lee, again, down at bottom, it's one of the, I mean, Wakefield, who we're going to come to next, lost as well, so it is looking like it is going to be between them two at the bottom. But again, they'll get a win or so somewhere. You know what I mean? I don't think they're going to go all season without winning. We know we're talking about Saints going unbeaten. Lee might just be beaten. No wins at all, just get beat. But I think they'll pick up a couple of wins. I think their game against Wake is going to be one of the biggest, probably the most important games to watch actually at season, to be honest. They will go on to Wake, who did lose to Catalans 38-18. Catalans did need this, you know. They started off really well sort of last week, so they've not looked as good. Come back in here, solid win against Wakey, what they needed, build a bit of confidence, get some points on board. And again, Catalans are looking similar to Hull, one of them teams who's going to be in and around that playoff picture come the end of the season. Probably not running away with it as much as Wigan and Saints are, but they're going to be there or thereabouts. Wakey as well, similar to Lee, they're in trouble. What are they going to do about it? It's going to come down to them Wakey League games, and if one of them teams can sort of pull off a win against some other teams in comp, because they arguably are the 2 weakest teams at the minute. Salford, Castleford. Castleford beating Salford 28 points to 18. Again, they're probably in that same bracket with Catalans and Hull. They're going to be in and around that playoff picture, playing really well. Yeah, are they going to win? You know, are they going to win the grand final with Powell in his last season at the club? Who knows? It could happen. It could not happen. You know, they've got Bradford from next season onwards. That'll be interesting how things change there and that sort of thing. How the kind of philosophy of how they play and that sort of thing change, because it is bound to with a new coach. That'll be interesting to watch for next season. But in terms of this season, looking solid. Salford. I mean, again, it's a good showing from Salford. I do think now they've started getting in the rhythm a bit. I do think they're going to be safe. You know, after a few weeks, I was a bit questionable over it. You know, they've got Marshall kind of not being the head coach in the Super League. I don't doubt his coaching abilities. I think he did wonders for Alifax, and he worked really well as the assistant at Saints. So I always thought it was a step up that he needed to make to be a head coach in Super League, and you know, he's starting to get his squad going a bit more now, and I do think they'll sort of be that lower mid-table. I don't think they'll push playoffs too much, but I don't think they'll be in the relegation battle either. Right, on to Saturday, Warrington 50, Hull KR 26. I think Hull KR's issues don't seem to be scoring, but they can score points, can Hull KR, do you know what I mean? A lot of the games are, you know, they've had a lot of close games where they've scored points and they've conceded a load of points as well, just like this. Defensively, questions are to be asked of them. Inglis's debut was very promising as well. Got over for a try, you know, playing in a couple of positions as well. So Warrington, again, probably a bit above that tier of teams we're talking about. I would say the top three, as it seems to be at B, or, you know, seems to be the top three teams every year, seems to be Saints, Wigan and Warrington at the minute, and I do think it'll be the same this season. KR, probably a bit above Salford in my rankings of sort of, if I'm talking rough league table at end of season at the minute. I think they've got a lot of promising signs. Now, I'm glad that, you know, a player like Ethan Ryan sort of worked his way into the team and is actually keeping his place, because I think he's a quality winger. Obviously, Bradford lad, were always one of Bradford's best players before he left to go to KR. So I'm happy to see him playing so well there. Right, now on to the last game. 1 point game. Matt won't be happy about this. I know that this for a fact. He'll be absolutely fuming. It probably won't referee's fault knowing Matt though. Huddersfield 14, Leeds 13. I know Leeds were up, and then, you know, 2 drop goals from Huddersfield. You know, you got to commend it really. But I mean, I was happy because in my fantasy team with Aiden Caesar getting pretty much all points bar 1 drop goal, which Gaskell stole off him. But Leeds, again, it's just one of them with Leeds at the minute where I said it last week. You know, when everyone's fit, they've got a playoff ready squad, but, you know, are they leaving it too late? I know it's not their fault with the injuries and stuff like that, but is it going to be too much of a hill to climb? I have no doubt once everyone's back, they're going to go on an absolute run, and they could be the sort of team that beats Saints, actually, when they're on a run, getting confidence, and Saints have kind of already grasped playoffs and kind of taking it, you know, kind of foot off the pedal sort of stuff. But they need to start sooner rather than later, Leeds. And games against Huddersfield, you know, may not seem it, but these are the big games. You know, Huddersfield are going to fancy themselves for playoffs as well, and they're probably in a similar boat to Hull KR Huddersfield, where they've got some good players there. They just need to get it going, get a proper philosophy there. I mean, under Watson, Huddersfield can go on a run. I do not doubt they can't go on a run, just as sort of Salford did a couple of seasons ago. They've definitely got it in them with the squad. And, you know, a player like Caesar in this game has just proved how valuable he actually is as an asset. So, I mean, I guess this is a good transition from Caesar onto the Fantasy League, but overall, just a closing note on Super League again. Another good weekend of Super League fixtures. Obviously, we've got Cup next week, which we'll be predicting later on. But yeah, good weekend of Super League fixtures, and I'm sure a few teams, more, you know, notably like kind of your Wigans, your Castlefords. I mean, all the winners this week will be happy. And, you know, we're getting to the point now where you can kind of, like I'm speaking, you can see you can kind of start predicting where teams might finish come end of season and where the different little battles in the league table are going to be. But yeah, we'll move on to another league table, which is the Fantasy League table, which I'm going to throw a disclaimer out there now, is definitely not right, because some of my players have got too low points for what they've done and that sort of thing. I've looked at that. Everyone's points seem lower than usual. It's a problem that seemed to happen a lot with fantasy this year, where the points, it was same as round one, the points just weren't right, and they're not right at the minute. You can just tell. I will, you know, on the screen you'll be looking at what the team is when I'm speaking about it now, so it probably will change in a couple of days or whatever before next week. But I'm currently sat in 17th. In terms of the best this week, it does go to John Mason, who's moved his way up to 3rd with that as well, but that is because, like, Ben Webster, who is below him, has only got 382, which doesn't seem right. Obviously that will change, but then look at John Bickerdike with the top 2 teams. Absolutely unreal from the guy, and he's up there. Hull FC, you know, proving large at the top. And I mean, you know, we talk about Saints, and you talk about Saints are unbeatable in Super League. They're not in fantasy. The top player, Lockdown Coup, quality name, Steve Bowie's in 10th. He's the highest up Saints fan. You know, like I say, I'm down in 17th. I'm way above Matt, but that really ain't hard nowadays. He probably hasn't touched his team. And then when we get in studio next week, he'll probably say, oh, you know, it don't work or whatever. You know what he's like, full of excuses, the lad. But yeah, fantasy's ticking along as well. We sort of asked you as well to come up with some sort of ideas, stuff you want for like kind of weekly prizes, monthly prizes, like little jokey things, as well as like sort of coming on podcast at the end of the year or stuff like that. John Bickerdike's looking good at the minute. So if you are watching, John, you know, you want to drop us a message either on, you know, drop us a message on Twitter, Facebook, even just drop it in comments at YouTube video, and we can get something sorted for you, to be fair, mate. Even if you want to come on podcast or something like that, because you're absolutely dominating at the minute, mate. And yeah, we'll sort something for that. But this sort of thing will come more when we are in studio. We'll have some more sort of fun stuff like that going ahead. Like we say, we can't wait to come back. We've been in, COVID. Everyone's been in it for so long. Just can't wait to get properly back into studio, back into rhythm and everything. And yeah, should be fun, shouldn't it? And getting back to rugby games as well, which is a couple of weeks off. I absolutely can't wait to get that Monday, 17th. I just can't wait for it, to be honest. Right. So that's it for fantasy. We'll move on now to next weekend's fixtures, which, like I say, we've got cup, we've got championship. Going to be some interesting games here. You always love a cup weekend. It's quarterfinals. It's going to be interesting. Who's going to make it semi-finals? Who's going to eventually get to Wembley? I reckon we start off with a cup then, don't we? So, Catalans versus Warrington. It's an interesting one because a cup tie is so much different to predict than a league tie, because you've got Catalans and Warrington, two teams who are playing well, and you just know it's going to be a cracker. Obviously, Warrington got the better of them last week when they did play, and I do see Matt doing it again, because I think Steve Price, it's his last season at Warrington. I think he'll want to win both trophies. Obviously, he wants to win every game, every trophy he possibly can. But I don't think he's going to sort of rest players for this cup game. I don't think any teams will, with it being all Super League. I'm going to back them. I do think they're going to go strong. I do think they're going to go strong, Warrington, and I do think they've got the momentum needed to just beat Catalans. I think it'll be closer. Then we've got Saints versus Huddersfield. Now this is one, if any team's going to rest, it would be Saints potentially. But I do see them beating Huddersfield. I think even if they wanted to rotate a couple of players, bring some youth guys in, I think they have just got too much for Huddersfield generally. And I do think they'll want to keep a bit of momentum going as well. So, yeah, we're going with Saints there. Hull Fc Wigan. Now this is an interesting one because they've just played last week, and obviously Wigan just got the better of them. I'm going to go on the other side now. I do think Hull FC are one of them teams that just plays well in cup compared with, I'm not saying Wigan don't play well in the cup either. I just think Hull FC is one of them teams who just sort of, there's kind of a bit of a stigma around them, like they just do job in cup in these sort of games, and I do think they'll get the payback on Wigan, who as well may not look to rest players, but players may, you know what I mean. I do think this is a sort of the cup that Hull will be targeting over Wigan potentially. I think Wigan want the big one, the Super League this year. Finally, we've got Castleford versus Salford. Again, maybe Salford push for this. They, a cup another final appearance is possible this year. You know what I mean? But I do think Cass as well. Cass needs silverware, and I think when we're talking earlier about Powell and how I'm not saying Powell needs silverware. I'm saying Powell probably wants silverware. It's his last season, and if I was looking at this now, I'm going to make a prediction for the Challenge Cup. I'm going to say Castleford win the Challenge Cup this season. That is my prediction. I will, in whenever the final is or whatever. I'm not sure on the exact date off the top of my head. And if they do win it, this will be getting clipped and replayed over and over again. Because I just see the narratives there. I don't think they've potentially got enough to win the grand final. And win the first Super League title, but I do think Powell, it's his last year there. There's a narrative there, isn't there, for him to win it, and I can see it happening. I think they've got the squad to do it completely. I think it obviously depends who they pass on the way. Salford's, not the hardest to draws from this. They could have had, they're not. Cass Salford isn't exactly the tastiest tie. Obviously, Cass got better of them last week, but yeah, I've got to back Cass for that one, and I'm backing them for the win as well, for the actual cup. Right, we'll move on to Championship now. We've actually got a full complement of 7 games this week. Obviously, we didn't have that last week. So we'll start off with Sheffield Batley. 2 teams on, fairly good form, both good starts to the season. And I do want to back Batley here, but I'm gonna go with Sheffield. I'm gonna back against Batley for 2 weeks in a row, and it's probably gonna hurt me. But I think Sheffield at home. They're top side away as well, but I just see Sheffield winning that. I think Batley, they've got so much momentum. How long can they maintain it? Like I say, I do think they can push players, but I think Sheffield are wanting to push them as well, and I do think Sheffield will just win this. I think it'll be probably be one of the closest games at weekend. Alden Whitehaven. Now this is a big game relegation wise. I think both teams have proved that they're better than relegation. They're good enough for this league. And honestly, I think there's probably a few it's an all separate discussion, but you put the top 6 or 7, realistically put the top 6. The top 6 from League 1 into Championship, I don't think your quality drops too much. I think there's more of a divide, and you have a 20-team Championship. I think that'd be unreal. So I think teams like teams like Oldham and Whitehaven, if these two teams went down, I think they are good enough. They're good enough for the Championship. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't like to see either of them go down. I wouldn't like to see any of these teams go down, that's the thing. But I do think this is the big relegation sort of 4-point game, you know what I mean? It's a big game, this, at Oldham. But I'm backing Whitehaven. I saw, I know obviously Oldham got the win against Alifax. Whitehaven didn't against Bradford. But I saw enough from Whitehaven. I mean, Lachlan Walmsley, unreal player, and I do think if they did go down, he'd be signing for a York, he'd be signing for a Bradford, like that sort of team. I do think he is that good, and I think they've got a good pair of halves as well, a decent set of forwards who just do the job. Do you know what I mean? They're a top side of Whitehaven, and I do think they'll just beat Oldham here. Then we've got Swinton versus Bradford. I'm going to have to go with my team here. Swinton are down bad. They're in desperate need of a win. We need payback from the pre-season friendly. I don't think that'll really factor into it, to be honest. But I think we're rolling well enough, and Lily and Bruff's really clicking now, and I'm liking what I see. Aaron Murphy as well at back row, showing his presence there. As Pack's actually really stood up, as props and stuff in that game, like the cup game against Fev, where we got knocked out, got absolutely thrashed. As Pack were absolutely shit, to be honest. I can't lie to you, it was shy. And they've really stepped up. They've took criticism and they've stepped up, and they're looking really good now. And I do think we'll just have too much pace and power for Swinton. London, Newcastle. I do think this will be one London pick off. Newcastle potentially pick up a few losses. Are they down in danger zone? Maybe. London need the win. I think they need to start picking up this momentum, and I think they'll do that with a win over Newcastle. Toulouse, Widnes. I think Toulouse. Obviously, this is being played after the Swinton game at Haywood Road, so that's going to be an interesting one, a bit of a double header there. I mean, I don't think the pitch suits either side really, but I do think Toulouse are just one of them teams that are just a bit unbeatable at the minute, and I do think they'll have a bit too much for Widnes. Dewsbury versus Alifax. Now, this is an interesting one because Dewsbury have got not form, obviously, because they've lost the last couple of games as well as Fax have, but I think Dewsbury have got a bit of heart about them in it. Fax are down bad. I don't think Dewsbury really are. Like, they've had two, lost fairly close against York, lost fairly close against Bradford. They played well in both games for me. So I'm actually going to back Dewsbury at home to do Halifax. Halifax, when they were last at Tetley Stadium a couple of weeks ago against Bradford, managed to lose. So maybe they do the same again. And lastly, the tie of the round realistically, York versus Featherstone. I've got to back Featherstone when I've said them and Toulouse are going to be 2-team. I swear, I reckon they just postponed that game last week just because they want to see how long these two teams can go unbeaten. And now, I guarantee they'll both lose. Get your money on Widnes to beat Toulouse, get your money on York to beat Fev, because now I've said that, it just won't happen. But, yeah, I'm backing Fev. I think this is going to be a close game as well. But Fev have just got too much quality for me, and they've got sort of a core squad that's been together for a few seasons now. They didn't need to make signings, but when they have, they've brought in players like Frankie Holton, who's just a quality back row. They've just brought in players who are just good players, and they've got that sort of squad depth as well, where like if a player drops down injured in pretty much any position, they've got someone there capable of stepping up. And they're just an unreal team, Fev. But I'm not just going to go on about how good Fev are forever, because the fans hate me, and I don't want to win them over just yet. But yeah, that has been my predictions. I'll sign off from the video in a second, and then you'll hear Matt's run through of his predictions. Thanks for listening from me, guys. Listening to sort of my thoughts and that sort of thing for next week and on last week's games. What are your predictions? Who's winning this? Who's winning the Challenge Cup? That's the question going down to all of you. Tell me your Challenge Cup winner out of these 8 teams. That sort of thing. Who's doing well in the Championship? What's your thoughts on the Championship? What teams are in trouble potentially in the Championship? That's a big thing. And like I said earlier, please leave a comment, like, subscribe, leave a review, and all that sort of thing. Anything you can do, if you're watching until now, and you can just, you can just pop a comment down there. We do love interacting with you guys and letting you, kind of knowing there's actually people there behind the views, if you know what I mean. It is nice to know you've got a proper audience and that sort of thing. And yeah, thanks for the support as well. Receiving a lot of messages and sort of comments and stuff of support, which we do really appreciate and we do encourage, obviously. And yeah, this is Calm signing out. We'll see you on Saturday. And yeah, over to Matt.
Right guys, back again. Next week we should be back in the studio for the long-awaited return and the first time this year. So, exciting times. Be sure to tune in next week for that. But getting straight into this week's predictions. And I'm actually going to start things off with the Championship this week. So, kicking us off, I've got Sheffield to beat Batley. Mostly home advantage. I think Oldham Whitehaven's going to be a tough one. I quite fancy the Ruffians at home on this one. Will be close. Should be a good game. Toulouse Widnes is apparently 0-0. Not sure what's going on there. It's because it moved from Saturday to Sunday and Sky haven't bothered to update it. That sounds about right. Into the Sunday's games then. I think Bradford probably will beat Swinton away from home. London just use the home advantage to pip Newcastle. I think Toulouse will beat Widnes in France. Dewsbury I think might just sneak a win against Halifax. That one at the Tetley Stadium. That could be the difference there. And in a real Titan clash, York and Featherstone at York. I don't know who I fancy for this one. I'm going to go Featherstone. I'll go out on a limb. But that again should be an absolutely thrilling game. Moving things on into League One, which of course kicks off this weekend. So there should hopefully be some very good games in that one. London Scholars vs Crusaders. Bear in mind I know nothing about League One, so this is a full-on guess, but I'm going to go for the Scholars. No, Crusaders. I'm going Crusaders. I think Hunslet to beat Workington, Barrow to beat Coventry, Keighley to beat Doncaster, and Rochdale to get the win over West Wales. And I think that is all the League One fixtures. And finally the main event, the Challenge Cup. I'm going to say for this one, this is a tough match. I'm going to go Catalans to beat Warrington. I think Saints will beat Huddersfield. Hull FC will not beat Wigan. I think Wigan are going to win that one. And Cast to beat Salford. I think that they're going to be tough games to predict. Catalan, Warrington especially, but I do think the French side will look to gain revenge. But yeah, I won't be too surprised if Warrington don't win that one. So a few cracking ties this weekend. We'll try and watch what we can and tweet along to them on the Twitter at TryTime Podcast if you don't follow us already. I'm sure Callum's plugged this at the start, but just in case not, subscribe, turn the red button grey, all that good stuff, notification bell, etc. And yeah, I will see you back in the studio next week, and join me on Saturday for a special Rugby League We Need to Talk. And I'll tell you what we need to talk about when it's launched on Saturday, so make sure to stick around for that one. Until then, see you later.